Hello. This is a video I've been thinking about making for some time. What I'm going to do is just going to talk you through the checks I do to prepare my car for going in for an MOT test. Now, by the magic of video editing, what should be appearing on your screen right about now is the official checklist that the tester will use to conduct the MOT test. It's a matter of public record, so you're free to access that online if you wish. I will leave a link down below, either in the video description, or I'll pin a comment. The example vehicle here today is a Volkswagen Golf Mark IV, 1.9 litre diesel. It's just about the most mainstream vehicle I'm ever likely to own, so thought I'd go ahead and make this video. Right, so we're going to start under the engine bay. Just something to keep in mind, like going through the whole video here. You're obviously not going to have the equipment at home, to measure the emissions or to measure the brake performance, or to check the pattern of the headlights is exactly what it should be. But these are just we're going to start off with basic checks that I think anybody could do, and then we're going to move on to a little bit more in-depth checks of the brakes and the suspension. The latter part of the video sort of assumes you have some knowledge and equipment, so don't go digging into that if you don't feel that you're capable of doing that. But the earlier part of the video should cover most of the basic checks that I believe anybody really should be able to do. Okay, so we're going to begin under the bonnet here. First thing I do is just have a good look around the engine bay, checking for leaks. So brake fluid leaks, diesel leaks. Can't really see too much down there, but what you're looking for is oil leaks. I mean, don't worry about just little bits of accumulated oil and grime like that. That's not a problem. What you're looking for is stuff that is visibly dripping and kind of pooling up on the floor. That's going to be a fail. As regards fluid levels, you're going to have a decent amount of brake fluid in the car, between the minimum and the maximum level. You're going to need screen wash in the car, enough to get fluid up to the screen. And if your car happens to be fitted with a warning light for the screen wash, if that is lit, then it's a fail. Oil level and coolant level, not really part of the test, but for your own sake I do suggest you do that. Check them beforehand, particularly on a diesel, because they're going to have to rev the engine up until the rev limiter kicks in for the smoke test. So you're not going to be very happy if you send it in with a low oil level and it comes out with a seized engine, so don't do that. Battery needs to be secure, and this one is not currently secure because the clamp isn't on it, but that needs to be rectified. Quick look around the outside of the vehicle. You don't need to worry about dents and scratches, anything along those lines, but if the vehicle's been in a minor accident, say, and one of the panels has got a split in it, if there's a sharp edge, then that would be a fail. Dents are fine, scuffs, scratches, all good, but no sharp edges, anything along those lines. All the doors, the bonnet and the boot, they all need to open and close, and they need to stay latched when you close them. No requirement for the locks to work so far as I know. Okay, so taking a look inside the vehicle, the seat belts need to be checked. If you take hold of the belt and give it a sharp tug downwards, it should lock. If it doesn't, that's going to be a fail. You also need to look at the condition of the strap, and it can't be torn or substantially frayed, and the clip also needs to latch into the buckle and release easy. Any problems with that, that's going to be a fail. The seats themselves need to be securely attached into the vehicle. The most important questions you could ask yourself regarding this is, what is your car trying to tell you? Now, it may not always be obvious if you drive the car every day just a few miles and, over time things wear out and problems develop gradually, but if you really stop and think and pay attention, just see the way the car is driving. Is it pulling to one side when you put the brakes on? Is it making a strange noise when you go down the road? Does it make a strange noise every time you go over a bump? Does it make a weird noise when it starts, when you shut it off? Are there any warning lights lit on the dashboard? If you don't know what the light means, take a look in your owner's manual, it should tell you. Or if you don't have the manual, try and Google it. It might be a bit difficult to describe to Google what the light is if you don't know, but you can sometimes find a PDF of the owner's manual online. That should tell you. And while we're on the topic of warning lights, I'll go through the ones that are relevant for the MOT. It doesn't apply to this car because it's too old to have one, but if you've got a modern diesel and that's fitted with an exhaust filter, if the warning light relevant to that is on, that's going to be a fail. I already mentioned the screen wash, that's a fail. When you put your main headlights on, the warning light for those needs to work. If it doesn't, it's a fail. ABS light needs to come on when you turn the key on and go out when the engine starts. Airbag light, on the other hand, just needs not to be lit. It doesn't have to work, just can't be lit. Check engine light doesn't apply to all cars. Again, it doesn't apply to this model, but if you have a petrol car registered 1st of July 2003 or newer, or a diesel car registered 1st of January 2008 or newer, the check engine light needs to come on with the key and go out when the engine starts. If it's older than that, doesn't matter whether it works, doesn't matter if it's lit. I think malfunction indicator for an electronic handbrake is a fail. Other things to check on the outside of the vehicle, have a look at your wiper blades and see what sort of condition they're in. It's not a requirement for the rear one to be in good condition, but I think it's worth doing anyway. In some respects this can be better checked from the inside of the car. If you give the windscreen a spray with the washer and just make sure it clears it nice and effectively. If you get big streaks going across your windscreen, you may just have some dirt on the blade that will clean off, but if it won't resolve, then you'll have to replace the wipers for the test. Also on the outside of the car, have a look that your number plates are in good condition and can be read. Minor deterioration is acceptable, but if you've got, say, a dark splodge next to a number 8 and you can't tell whether it's a number 8 or a B, if that sort of thing is starting to go on, then you have to get your plates replaced. One of the easiest things to check on the outside of the vehicle is the lights. Switch your hazard lights on. When you go around the car, you should get 6 lights flashing. There's obviously one on the wing there, one in the headlight, and one on the back, same on the other side. Now if you start the car up and then move on to checking the rest of the lights, switch your hazards off and then try the indicators. Switch it left and check the 3 on the other side, switch it right and check the 4 on the driver's side. Now this car kind of nearly led me into a false sense of security, because most cars, when you put the indicators on, if you've got a bulb out, it'll flash really rapidly. However, this one gave the normal kind of pulsing rate of the warning lights, yet the little side indicator on the passenger side is blown. So got one of those bulbs coming in the post, but that's just a little bit of information. It highlights the importance of checking everything properly. Okay, after the indicators, turn your main light switch on to the first setting, which is sometimes called the side lights, now most commonly referred to as parking lights. And then what you should get with that switched on, you have a look down inside there, that little bulb inside the headlight should be on, and the red light at the top on either side should be on. That obviously applies to both sides. I think the number plate lights might come on with that, not entirely sure. However, if you move it on to the next setting, what you will also get, not just the little light, but you'll also get the bigger light inside the headlight. You'll still get the red lights at the back, and you should definitely have the number plate light on that setting. Now this is quite an easy car to check it on, because you can see all the 4 bulbs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. You switch the main lights on by moving the indicator stalk. It needs to be able to flash, and you need to be able to push the switch away. It needs to latch on, and both of the main headlights need to work as well. And whilst they're on, the warning light on the dashboard needs to work as well. One of the most important things, and often overlooked on the outside of a vehicle, is your tyres. They have to be sufficiently inflated to not be obviously underinflated, if that makes sense. You can also check the side wall of the tyre. You can't have any bulges or cuts in there whatsoever. If you can see bits of metal or like fabric poking out, the tyre's done, it's game over. And then you check the tread. You need to look all the way around, and you can get your hand on top of the tyre and feel into the grooves. If the little whir indicators are now flush with the tread, as in that the tread is worn down so that that's level across the whir indicator, it's game over for that tyre. You need to of course check all 4 corners for that. I don't think the spare tyre is actually checked, but I'd check it anyway, because, well, you never know when you might need it. Other things to consider there, I suppose actually a lot of modern vehicles now don't come with a spare wheel. Apparently that's no longer necessary for whatever reason. Also, if you have a system in the car that monitors your tyre pressure, if that's giving you some sort of a warning that the system is malfunctioning, or that you have a tyre that's underinflated, even if it says it's underinflated and it obviously isn't, they're all faults that have to get rectified for the test. But this car's too old to have that kind of system, so not a problem here. I think that's just about it for the, how should we say, the easier checks. The rest of it really involves getting a bit more involved, like, you know, taking wheels off and starting to check suspension and that sort of thing. About the last thing I could suggest that you could do if you're not particularly mechanically inclined is just to get down on the floor and have a peek underneath the car. May not 100% know what you're going to be looking for, but if you can see any pipes with fluid leaking out of them, that's an indication you've got something going wrong with your brakes. kind of refers back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, what's your car trying to tell you. If you're driving it and it's not stopping all that well, you've got a bit of a problem. And that is actually kind of the case with this car at the moment, because it was sitting for quite some time during the second lockdown, and well, I won't say it, but I've got an idea what's going on and what's going to need to be taken care of, but we'll discover that most probably when we get the wheels off in a moment. Other things to check while you're looking down underneath the car is, if you can, whatever you can see of the exhaust system, just to see that it's in reasonable condition and it is properly sort of supported and not, you know, hanging down, even scraping along the floor. If you've got a hole in it, you'll hear it probably, if it's a significant one. Right. What I'll do now is I can get one of the wheels off and we can see what we can see.
Okay, first task, wheel trim off. Take the wheel nuts loose, 17mm. Up. And same on the other side. Okay, I'm going to check you got the car securely on the stands, all 3 feet nice and level, and nice and flat on both the stands. Also want to chock the rear wheels and make sure you have both front wheels actually off the ground. Right, in terms of checking the front suspension over, this is where I begin. Sort of look up in here at the spring, and some of the paint's peeling off, but that's not such an issue. What you're really looking for is cracks, which I don't see any. More often than not they break near the bottom, somewhere around about that point maybe, and you have that last little bit will be probably just missing or rattling around loose in there. A similar thing can happen near the top. Doesn't look to be the case here. You can also grab hold of the spring there and try and give the whole assembly a tug to see for any play at the top bearing. With the wheel still on, you can also get a reasonable look at the brake line there. Doesn't appear to be any corrosion or leaking going on. So what I'll do now is move on to what you can see at the wheel. Already got a clue there. There's a rusty crusty mess of a brake disc. I'll get a better look at that shortly, but brake is definitely dragging. Okay, if you grab the wheel at either side, give it a wiggle. What you're feeling for is to see if there's just a little bit of play before you get any movement, and that would indicate a worn steering joint. I'll show you those when we get inside, to get the wheel off. Same action top and bottom. Feeling for a loose ball joint, again that's nice and tight. I'll show you what the components look like when we get the wheel off. You would give the wheel a bit of a spin ideally to have a listen to the wheel bearing, but the brake is so obviously dragging, it kind of makes that a bit pointless at this point. So just a warning not to trick yourself. Did take these loose before, but if they're actually completely loose you can put play between the wheel and the hub, and that may make you think you've got a problem somewhere you don't. So oops, don't fall into that one. Okay, let's get the wheel off completely. While you're unscrewing the bolts, you can start to check the tyre out properly. Good look at the outside. If you've got a bulge, that's a problem. Anything stuck in the side wall, bits of metal or ply sticking out. Okay, to check the tyre thoroughly, you need to check both sides and the full tread. Just show you the inside. Whoa, that brake's crusty. Don't see any problems there at all. Let's check the tread. I'll look for even wear across. That indicates the car's driving and riding correctly. And what you really want to look out for is these little wear indicators that are in the tread. If the tyre is worn down to the point where they're flush, then the tyre is scrap basically. Those little triangles on the side tend to indicate where they are. And if you're getting, if that area is scrubbed flat or that area is scrubbed flat, you need to have your tracking looked at. If the let's get this right. If you imagine that's the wheels on your car, if you've got them both towing in like that, what you'll have is that going on. I know I'm exaggerating, but that will put that edge of the wheel further forwards than that one, and that'll scrub the outside. If it's the wheels are both doing that, have that going on, so the inner surface is forwards, and that will get scrubbed. So check the tyre all the way around. Stone stuck in there. That looks like a good tyre to me. If you see oil kind of spewing down here, that's the sign that the seal on the shock has gone. You'll probably feel that driving the car because it won't ride very well. But if you see a lot of oil coming down, then the shock is finished basically. Also check the condition of it. This has got a good amount of surface rust on it, but it's not weakened. Check the full condition of the brake hose. Give it a little wiggle around here, see if it exposes any splits. That one looks okay. That's your outer steering joint there. Just need to check the condition of the rubber on it. fine. Inner steering joint is under there. Cover on that looks fine. This here is your anti-roll bar. And those bushings are a fairly common wear point on these Mark IV Golfs, and that'll give you a nice clunking noise as you're going down the road without really much obvious change to the way it handles. So if you get, that was actually new last year, but you can get a pry bar in there and just check to see that there's no adverse play in it. I mean, there obviously is some play because the bush is designed to have some the anti-roll bar link, so it's got a drop link or an end link. Bit difficult to do one-handed, but I need to hold the touch to put plenty of light in here. You don't want any adverse movement between the link and the bar. Again, this was new last year. That's pretty good. Looking back here, that's the forward bush for the control arm. Really need a bit of a bigger bar than this, but that is absolutely solid. And the rear bushings back here, these are designed to have quite a bit of play in them. Sort of springy wise. Don't be alarmed at that. You'll be able to see any serious deterioration in there. I mean, if it's moving all over the place without, you know, when you've got like cracks in there and the rubber's separated and there's loads of movement in it, you've got a problem. I suppose it would also be possible you get corrosion in the control arm to the point where that would be weakened, but you'll probably have problems with the bushes or the ball joint before that. Just give the shaft a bit of a wiggle just to see if there's any play in the joints. Also have a look around. Obviously got a little bit of oil seeping from the engine. It's not excessive. I don't think the tester would even comment on that. Not an MOT requirement, but from a service point of view, you can have a look at the belt. It's in decent condition. Right, go and have a look at the other side. Okay, same again. Try and give it a spin. Again, the brakes are dragging, so deal with that, and we'll recheck the bearing afterwards. Side to side feels good. Top and bottom feels good. No play up there. I can't see anything weird going on there. Okay, take the wheel off. Yeah, that nice little bit of shiny metal there, that's what your disc should ideally look like all over. Just a hint that that rubber's starting to deteriorate there. Good. That's fine. That's good. Good. Got an additional wire on this side. That's a whir sensor for the brakes. I didn't say before, that one's the ABS sensor. And this chap here is the hydraulic hose for the brake. Again, some minor signs of leaking on the transmission. I mean, end of the story, this is now 17 going on 18-year-old car, so some oil sweating is to be expected. You only need to be bothered if it's dripping out and sort of pooling up on the floor. And this disc again is getting somewhat past it, to say the least. Obviously the surface of the disc alone is enough to write this off. So basically We've got no surprises round here again, except for exactly what I was expecting and prepared for, which is terminally corroded brake discs. So we need a front brake job. Other than that, the front end looks pretty good. So in order to avoid raising the car up more than once, I'm going to do the front brakes, then move on to checking the rear, and I'm hazarding a guess we're going to find exactly the same thing again. Lap tyres wearing a bit on the outer edge. Given that this is a fixed axle, I suspect that's probably been swapped from the front. Tread is acceptable. There's a few minor cracks. I think this car could ideally do with a set of decent tyres. In the not too terribly distant future, but it will do for the time being. Don't know how much you're going to be able to see inside here, because unfortunately some idiot forgot to charge the torch. Nevertheless, we're going to progress and see what we can get done. That's the best I can do regarding some additional lighting. Again, we've got some peeling paint going on the spring, but it's not broken. Bottom of it looks intact as well. Shock is slightly corroded, but it's not leaking. It doesn't look to me terribly weakened or anything. Good amount of material left on the outer pad, but the disc is fairly well corroded at this point. You can see through the inspection window there at the back of the caliper. You can actually see the disc in the middle there. You can see there's good friction material on either pad. Something else of note, if you look there, that is the mechanism for the handbrake. There should actually be a very small gap there. It's adjusted correctly, so that might need some tightening when we've done the brake job. Exhaust looks in good condition, but the rear axle's starting to look a bit crusty. General underbody of the car is in very good order. Right, move on to the brake job.